In this video, I'll be teaching you how to make a basic pizza dough, a basic stuffed crust pizza, and a basic margherita style pizza. Cheers. G'day everybody and welcome to my Aussie gardening kitchen. If it's your first time here, my name's Darren, but please call me Daz. And in this video, I'm going to show you an absolutely easy, simple pizza dough recipe. So this recipe here is going to be made up of products that you've more than likely got at home in your pantry already. So hopefully there'll be no need for you to go out and actually buy anything else. So this is what we've got today. We've got plain flour, just an all-purpose plain flour, not bread flour, not any special flour, just your normal plain flour, or as other people call it, all-purpose flour. Down here in the measuring spoon, we've got salt, just normal table salt, any type of salt really. We've got sugar here, just plain old white sugar in the bowl here. And in this jug here, I've got dry instant yeast that I've already put into warm water just so I can get things moving and get that yeast activated. Now all the exact measurements will be put down below in the description, so please head down to the description and check out all the details that you need. And of course, if you have any questions, pop them down in the comments below and I'll get to them as soon as I can, and I do answer all my comments. So the first step that we have is to get the yeast ready. So what I've done here is I've got warm water. Now this water is at about 36 degrees Celsius, about 100 Fahrenheit. And then to that, I've added a teaspoon of the sugar that I've already measured out. And then to that, I've added the amount of yeast that we need. And then I've given that a stir and I've let it sit for 10 minutes. So what's happened is that warm water and that little bit of sugar in there has got that yeast to come alive, and it's started to froth up and foam. I'm not sure if you can see that from where you are there, but you can just see there's a head of foam on top of that yeast there. Kind of like a beer, which has yeast in it. Oh, you can really smell that yeast. Good stuff. So here we've got our mixing machine with a dough hook. So if you don't have an electric mixer, no problem at all. What you would do instead is just put all the ingredients into a mixing bowl, and with one hand, just give it a mix with one hand. Then you'll get it onto the bench and you'll knead it by hand on the bench, and I'll show you that in a minute. First of all, we'll put in our 2 cups of flour, the sugar, the salt goes in. So what I'm doing now is I'm just giving those dry ingredients a quick mix just to blend them together. Okay, so when your dry ingredients are in the bowl, if you'd like to, you could add a teaspoon of mixed herbs. You could add a teaspoon of onion powder. You could even add a teaspoon of garlic powder, your choice. And then you can just pour the yeast mix on top of that and get it all mixing and make the dough as you would with a plain dough. So now we'll add the yeast. So as you can see, that's our nice foamy yeast. Just give it a stir, pour that in. That's fine. Now what I like to do is mix this by hand to start with, just to get the liquid and the dry ingredients together roughly. It just makes it a bit easier when it's mixing with the dough hook. Now if you don't have an electric mixer, you're pretty much doing exactly the same in your mixing bowl. All right, so for those of you that don't have the electric mixer and are just doing it in a bowl, what you do now is you get your hand in there and just squish it together. Now just a tip, what you can do is just get a bit of flour and rub it on the palm of your hand, and it'll stop the dough from sticking to your hand too much. I'm not gonna bother. Now if your dough looks a little bit too dry in the bowl, what I do recommend is you get a little bit of water, put it into a tablespoon, and then all you would do is just add little bits at a time, just pouring it in until you think the dough looks okay. You just want a soft mixed dough that holds together well and it's moving around in the bowl. You don't want a slush or anything like that. Now, if you thought it was too wet, same deal. Get yourself a tablespoon, grab some flour, and just gradually add flour a little at a time, and it'll be perfectly fine. In these sorts of amounts, you're not really going to mess up the dough. All right, so for those of you that are using a mixing bowl and not a machine, you've pretty much got a dough like this, a rough dough like this. It feels fine. It's soft to push, a bit like plasticine. So then what you would do is get it onto your bench, nice clean bench. So what I like to do is get the ball of my palm here and add pressure into the dough like that. Then pull it over, pressure like that. Turn it, fold it over, pressure like that. Pull it over, pressure like that. Turn it, doesn't matter which way. Pull it over, pressure like that. So what you're doing on the bench is you're essentially folding it onto itself and pushing pressure into it, folding it onto itself, pushing pressure onto it, turning it, pushing pressure onto it, and you're just stretching this dough here to get that gluten and the elasticity that you need. So on the bench, and you just do this for maybe a good 7 to 10 minutes, just getting that dough worked. Now, for those of you that are using the machine, you have your dough in the machine, just form together like we did, put on the dough hook, lock that dough hook into place, nice and safe, just double check it, put it down, make sure there's nothing, no fingers or the spatula still sitting in the bowl or anything like that, and put it on a slow to medium speed. This is a single dough for a single pizza, so this is where someone can just come into the kitchen, get it made a couple of hours beforehand when they know they want pizza that night. The dough's going to be ready for dinner time and bang, off you go. So easy. I really do recommend you give this one a go. Okay, that should do it. Turn it off. We'll open this up. That feels good. You can really feel the difference in the dough. Almost like a plasticine feeling. And then if you push into it, it slightly comes back a little bit. So that's pretty good. Okay, so the reason we have the oil is we're just going to put a little bit of oil into the bowl. We're just going to spread that oil around the bowl. And all that's doing is just making the bowl non-stick for the dough. Grab your ball of dough, sit it in the bottom of the bowl. Get some cling film, stretch it out to the size of the top of the bowl, and then just on the bench, don't be too fussy. Grab your pastry brush that had the oil on it, and just brush that oil onto the cling wrap. If you need to, just grab some from inside the bowl. Then take that oil side, flip it over, sit it at the top of the bowl, and all I do is just carefully push it. So what I did before I started everything was I turned the oven on to a very low temperature, about 80 degrees Celsius on this. Fahrenheit, I'll put on the screen. And then when I had all my ingredients ready to go into the bowl, I turned off the oven and kept the door closed. So now the oven is actually warm enough, and it's a warm space for this because you want that warm environment to keep that yeast growing inside the dough. That's going to raise the dough and stretch it out to double its size, and that should take about an hour. We'll get it in there. Okay, now make sure you don't have your oven too hot, because if you use a plastic bowl like I did, it's not going to end well. So what we'll do now is we're going to wait for roughly an hour, and I'll have a look at it after about 45 minutes and check it. And what I'm looking for is the dough to be about double in size. And what's happening there is the yeast is still growing inside that dough, and that's stretching all that dough and helping it to be a nice fluffy dough later on for the pizza base. Now there's a couple of ways you can go about cooking your dough. Pizza tray. You can put it on a pizza tray. Now what I like to do is when we cook on our pizza trays, semolina. Now what we like about the semolina is that it stops the dough from sticking to the tray, but it also gives the bottom of the dough a nice crispy little feeling, a grainy feeling to the bottom of the dough. Absolutely love it. If you can't get semolina, a lot of people use cornmeal. They just put cornmeal in their trays and away they go. Another option is the good old pizza stone. Now with the pizza stone, what you would do is when you preheat your oven to get your oven really hot, pop this in at the start to get this hot with it. So then what will happen is you make your pizza on the bench, and then you either slide it off a tray or you have a big spatula, slide it onto the hot stone that's in the oven, and you'll get a nice crispy pizza. Okay, here we go. This is the pizza dough that's been in the oven, warming in the oven. It's doubled in size, and there you go. You've got, oh, it is so soft. Nice, soft, delicate dough. I don't know if you can see the finger marks. It is so soft, it's unreal. All right, so what I've done now is I've got my oven turned on. It's turned up to maximum, which is about 250 degrees Celsius. In Fahrenheit, I'll pop that on the screen now. The pizza stone's in there with it, so that pizza stone's going to come up to heat with the oven. So by the time I'm done here with rolling out the dough and topping the pizza, that oven and the pizza stone are both going to be ready to go. Okay, so we'll bring in the rolling pin, bring in the plain flour and the dough. So what I like to do, just get some flour, pop it on the bench, and then move it around a bit. Put it in my hands, between my fingers, like this. That way, when I'm handling the dough, it's not so sticky on the fingers. Rolling pin, roll it in the flour. There we go. Give it a tap. Rolling pin is now coated with flour. It won't stick as much. Got the dough. As you can see, that lifted out straight away with that oil that I pre-greased the bowl with. Easy. Get rid of this excess flour. And there we go. So all we'll do is push it around. You might be able to see that the pizza dough has got a slight skin on it, just slight. That's no big deal. But what happened there was I forgot to push the cling wrap down completely over the surface, so the air did get to it. But trust me, that's not going to have any sort of impact on the pizza in the end. So all I'm doing is I'm just working this, pushing it into a circular shape. Might just put a sprinkling of dough on top, dust it like that. Give the bench a slight dusting again. Put the dough down, and then what you can do is you can play with it and stretch it like so, using your hands as fists. So as you can see, these corners, they've gone a bit crusty, but that's fine. I've got a solution for that. So give it a basic roll. No pressure, I'm just letting it roll under the weight of the pin. And then from the middle, I'm just turning the rolling pin outwards like that as I turn, and it's slowly pushing outward and expanding the dough. All right, so what you can do now is you can get a pizza tray, get your semolina or your cornmeal, sprinkle that on the base of here, just lightly, and then get your rolling pin, gently roll up your dough, hold the pin by the end, pull the tray over, lay the pin on top and unroll it. And then what you can do is you can go around and form that inside the tray and have yourself a pizza dough inside the tray. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it back onto itself, bring in baking paper or parchment paper as people call it, roll the dough on top of that. So then what I can do now is get this bad boy here, slide it underneath the paper and lift up the whole pizza and transfer that pizza to that hot pizza stone in the oven behind me. But as you saw, the pizza's sagging over the edges. That's fine for what I'm about to do. But what you would do if you just want a standard pizza is you make sure it's inside the shape of this paper and you can lift it up. You can see where it's sagging here. You're obviously not going to make it bigger than the spatula. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a stuffed crust pizza. So these edges are going to be folded over. So for my stuffed crust pizza, I've got mozzarella cheese, and I'm just going to run mozzarella cheese roughly around the edge like this. And then I'm just going to bring the dough over, push the dough back with my thumbs to trap that cheese, and then pinch down and close it in. So I'm just rolling it around, pinching it in, trapping the mozzarella cheese inside that crust. Now look, you're not going for any awards here, so don't be too fussy about how you're trying to get it exactly round and the same thickness. Try to keep it uniformly the same so it cooks evenly, but don't stress about the shape and stuff like that too much. And the beauty of this paper is that you can turn the pizza while you work with it. Okay, so there's your basic stuffed crust. So all I'm doing with my thumbs or my fingertips is around the edges. I'm just pushing in, closing that seam all around the edge, pushing my finger slightly into underneath here just to get that seal, like so. Do it all the way around. So there you go. That's a basic stuffed crust. Okay, so for the topping, we've got this is a ready-made pasta sauce. One of the kids made some bolognese, I think yesterday. So we've got a bit left over. So we actually use this as pasta sauce in the house. If I don't make it myself, we always use this. This is actually a name brand pasta sauce, and it's absolutely brilliant. We absolutely love this, and it's a fantastic pizza topping. Put as much as you like. I'm going to load it on a little bit because I really like that tomato sauce from this jar. I'm just riding the sauce up halfway up the edges a little bit, just to get a bit of sauce in these edges. Not all the way over the crust. You probably saw that there was a little bit of cheese in there from when I was doing the crust, but no big deal. It's about to get cheese anyway. Now, if I didn't mention it already, that was a mozzarella cheese that went inside. Next, mozzarella cheese. Get it in there. There we go. Making a mess as I go along. Beautiful. This is just a shredded tasty cheddar cheese. Get some of that in there. Mozzarella doesn't really have that much of a taste, so this shredded cheddar cheese will do the job for taste. There we go. Then finally, my wife made hamburgers yesterday, and what I like to do with pizzas and hamburgers is I'll slice tomatoes, salt and pepper, and mixed herbs on top of that. Pop this in the dehydrator, and then I dehydrate them about 3/4 of the way. I don't make them go crispy hard, but these have now dried out a lot and the flavor is concentrated, almost like a sun-dried tomato. So I knew I was doing this pizza today, so I've saved some of these to put on the pizza. So just lay them on. Like so. There we have it. A little bit of cheese left in the packet. Let's get it on there. And one last bit of mozzarella. Okay, job done. So as I said before, you've got the spatula. Look at that, lift it straight up. take it to the oven. Okay, let's get this guy in here. Get it off here. Beautiful. Oh, here we go. All right. It smells pretty good to me. Nice. Oh, looks good underneath. Oh, base looks perfect. All right, we'll get rid of this paper. Don't need the paper anymore. Got the cutter. Oh, guys, the smell is yummo. So let's take a piece out. Bit of cheese there. There we have it. That's my pizza dough, the final result. Hopefully you can see inside the cheesy crust there. There we go, the cheesy crust. All right, I think I really need to taste this. Would only be fair to taste it and see how it goes. Oh, bit of cheese hanging off there. Oh, that's pretty good. So of course it's got to get a Daz approves. Let's try some of that crust. Really nice dough there with the mozzarella cheese inside. I want to say finger licking good, but I think somebody might use that for something else somewhere, for a different type of food. So there you go. That's a basic pizza dough recipe using basic ingredients in the house. It's also a basic margherita pizza recipe, with the exception of the sun-dried tomatoes that I'd used for another recipe earlier, and a basic cheesy crust. So you can get all fancy and you can add other things to the crust. You could probably put some jalapenos in there, or more cheese, or maybe some bacon or sausage or whatever. Do what you like. But here you go. That's the basic recipe for making a pizza dough, the basic making of a margherita style pizza, and the basic makings of a stuffed crust. Now that you've seen how I make the dough, check out my other videos, because I've got an awesome potato topped pizza. Yes, a potato topped pizza. It's absolutely brilliant. Something the Italians have actually been doing for a long time. That's my take on it. And I've got a video here on my channel, so do check that out. Thanks very much for watching. Check out my other videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye.